Am I live? I think I'm live. Okay, I missed the countdown. Now I've got to find the Bible study. My name is Doug Griffin. This is my Wednesday night Bible study. It's June 30th, and we are in the book of Matthew. Yes, okay. Open recent Matthew 27, chapter 27, part 4. So Jesus has had 6 trials. He's on his 6th. They got him in the Garden of Gethsemane. They brought him before Annas and then Caiaphas and then the Sanhedrin Council. Those are all the Jewish leaders, right? The high priest, the former high priest, who they still considered the high priest, the whole Jewish council, all the scribes. Then they took him to Pilate. Pilate didn't know what to do with him. So then they mentioned Galilee. Jesus is from Galilee. Uh-oh. Sent him to Herod. Herod didn't know what to do with him other than make fun of him. Herod sent back to Pilate. So Pilate is trying to figure out a way to get this guy released. He doesn't think Jesus is guilty of anything. He can tell they're just mad at him because he's getting more attention than they are. They're jealous. I mean, it says that in the Bible. They're jealous. He's getting more attention. He's getting bigger crowds. Everyone loves him. These people are mad at him. They want me to kill him. Aren't we that way? Okay. So he's trying to figure out how I can talk them out of this thing. Backing up a little bit, in Matthew 27, verse 15, it says, Now at the feast of the governor, at the Passover feast, the governor was accustomed to releasing to the multitudes one prisoner whom they wished, and at that time they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. We talked last time that his full name was actually Jesus Barabbas, because Jesus was actually a common name. And Jesus is Yeshua or Joshua, and it's Jesus the Messiah that makes him unique, not actually the name Jesus. Uh, so his name is Jesus Barabbas, was his Yeshua Bar Abba, which is son of a father, and Jesus was son of the Father. And so he's basically saying, which one do you want, Jesus son of a father or Jesus son of the Father? Bar Abba. Bar means son of, right? Therefore, when they gathered together, Pilate said to them, Whom do you want me to release to you? Jesus Barabbas or Jesus the Christ? And for he knew that they had handed him over because of envy, because of jealousy. He really hasn't done anything. It says, while he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent to him, saying, Have nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him. So she had suffered many things in a dream. So in her dream, she was going through all sorts of terrible stuff because of what was happening to Jesus. Judgment was coming on her. She suffered. So no, let him go, because if you put him on the cross, if you don't really, bad things are going to happen to us Romans. I can feel it, right? Now, interestingly, Pontius Pilate, the reason Pontius Pilate is so wishy-washy, shall I let him go? Is because he married into this family. She is the granddaughter of Augustus Caesar. She's the granddaughter, the illegitimate granddaughter. His daughter was married but had other kids with other people. So he was an illegitimate granddaughter, but still a granddaughter. And Pontius married her. He was in the Roman army and married up and was appointed governor. A little nepotism going on there. But he wasn't some great commander who makes big decisions. And he just married into, he was lucky. So he does not know what to do. So it says in John 19:13, when Pilate therefore heard the saying, like, Bring us, we want Barabbas, he brought Jesus out. He sat down in the judgment seat in a place that is called the pavement. Oh, I'm sorry, this is John 19:13. But in the Hebrew, it's called Gabbatha, which means the pavement. So I don't know why John, but it's really called El Pavimento. Okay. So anyway, it's this area that has all these mosaics on the ground, and it was really actually this gorgeous pavement area that was decorated, and he would bring his throne out there Now I'm ready to judge. So he brings his stone out there, even though his wife had sent to him saying, don't do it. And says, so he's saying, are you sure? And in verse 21, it says, but the chief priests, the elders persuaded the multitudes that they should ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus. So the chief priest said, you need to listen to us. Follow us. What could the harm be? Listen to us. A lot of people are destroyed because their leaders lead them astray. The governor answered and said to them, which of the two do you want me to release to you? And they said, Barabbas. Right, they're all screaming out Barabbas. And Pilate said to them, well, then what shall I do with Jesus who is called Christ? And they all said to him, let him be crucified. Then the governor said, why? And he's really pleading. He's actually on Jesus' side trying to get him off, right? Why? What evil has he done? But they cried out all the more, saying, let him be crucified. Now, going back to John 19. And John has, I don't know who John knew in the inner circle, but John knew someone in the inner circle because he heard things. He just have to get in places. He was connected somehow. John just has more information than everybody else. So, back to John 19. Now, he had said earlier in the second half of verse 6, Pilate said to them, but you take him and crucify him because I find no fault in him. Like, I'm not going to crucify him, so you do it. And the Jews answered in verse 7 of John 19, because I'm mixing them together because Matthew doesn't have all the information. John seems to have more information about this part of it. The Jews answered him and said, we have a law, and according to our law, he ought to die because he made himself the Son of God. So you can't do that. So you got to put him. Therefore, when Pilate heard that saying, he was the more afraid, like, okay, this might be the Son of God. So at first they said he was a king. And Pilate was, oh, so you're a king, huh? Yes, but Jesus said, not of this. He had no trouble answering the king stuff. Yes, but if I had a kingdom on this earth, my followers would have come in, they would have overthrown you. So, yes, I'm a king, but not on this earth. Okay. Sounds good to me. I'm ready to let you go. But when he said, he's made himself the Son of God, then it says, Pilate was all the more afraid, like, so you're trying to get me to crucify the Son of God? Are you crazy? So he was the more afraid, so he went again into the more. So Jesus is inside, the crowd is outside. Pilate keeps going back and forth. Pilate goes out to the crowd. Are you sure? Yes. So he goes into Jesus. What do I tell him, Jesus? And he's, so he goes back out to the crowd. Then he goes back inside. He's just going back and forth. So he goes back into the praetorium. That's where Jesus is on the inside. And said to Jesus, where are you from? They just said that you're the Son of God. Where are you from? Because if you're like from Compton, then I'm good with that. But where are you from? But Jesus gave him no answer. Which is because Jesus is like, where do you think I'm from, right? So then Pilate said to him, are you not speaking to me at this point? I've got my dear life. He says, are you not speaking to me? Do you not know that I have the power to crucify you and the power to release you? Because Jesus, where are you from? Because they'd already had this conversation. I told you I'm a king. And here's one thing that God does in the Bible that makes me crazy. Apparently he does it in real life. God will say, I'm going to say it to you once. And I'm not going to keep repeating it. And we go back to Jesus. God, what did you? And God's like, you know what I said? You're not going to get a different answer from me or try to get me to change. Like we do with regular people. We try to get a different answer. Okay, you said, that I have to walk 2 miles, but really, maybe I could walk 1.5 miles. There's no negotiation. I've already told you what you need to know, and you need to think about what I told you. So Jesus is not answering. I already told you, I am a king and I have a kingdom, but it's not of this world. That's all you need to worry about. What are you going to do about it? So when he says, where are you from? Nothing. I have the power to crucify you, and I have the power to release you. So Jesus can resist this. You could have no power at all against me unless it had been given to you from above. So you understand you really don't have any power. God set you in this place for this time. So am I supposed to be afraid of you, or I'm supposed to listen to you or listen to God? Therefore, the one who delivered me to you actually has the greater sin. So you only are here because God put you here. It's the people that delivered me to you, because you don't think I'm guilty. They actually have the greater sin. So From then on, Pilate thought to release him. He's like, okay, this man is saying that if we go ahead and do this, we are sinning. So I don't want to sin. So he says, so Pilate went back outside and he's like begging, come on now, come on guys. But the Jews cried out saying, if you let this man go, because he's basically telling them, okay, I'll give you Barabbas, but I'm going to release Jesus too. If you let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend. And whoever makes himself a king speaks against Caesar. So like they're trying to give him more reasons. Like he said he was a king and he's against Caesar. And you're not be against, like we love Caesar. We're here trying to support Caesar. Okay, skipping down to verse 14. I'm back in John 19 because John just had more information. And so he says, now it was the preparation day of the Passover. So this is Thursday day, right? This is Thursday day. Jesus had his meal the day before Passover. It was not a Passover meal. So this is the preparation day for the Passover that was starting that night. It says it was about the 6th hour. So they counted their days. Their day started at 6 a.m. And at the 6th hour, it's noon. At the 12th hour, it is done, right? The day is done. The day goes from 6 to 6. And then it's the night of the next day. So it's still the preparation day. It is Thursday day at noon. Jesus is about to be crucified on Thursday day. And what we would call Thursday night is when he's in the tomb. He says, I'll be 3 days and 3 nights. Even though it's Thursday night, even though it's only 6:02, and now he's in the tomb, he's going to be in the tomb, they're really calling that Friday night because their day begins at night. Now, our day begins at night. Our day begins at midnight. At midnight, 12:01, it's the next day in our heads. Oh, it's late. It's already Friday now, right? But for them, Friday started at 6 p.m. Thursday night. Okay, so it's Thursday day. And then what we would call Thursday night, he's in the tomb. Friday night, he's in the tomb. Saturday night, in the tomb. But they would call 6 p.m. Thursday night, Friday night. And then the next day is Friday, right? So it's night first, and then it's day. And that's where people get this Good Friday thing from. Technically, he was on the cross on Thursday day and then Friday night, but we would call it Thursday night. So that's why they celebrate Good Friday. All right. Anyway, he's saying it's noon on preparation day, and by noon they have to start killing those lambs so they can have Passover that night, their Passover meal, right? So he's just saying now is preparation day of the Passover in about the 6th hour, which is noon. And he said to the Jews, behold, that this is your king, right? And they cried out, away with him, crucify him. And Pilate said to them, shall I crucify your king? This is your king. I believe him. And the chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar, which is a lie. They hated Caesar. The Jews hated Caesar, trying to overthrow him the whole time any way they can. But no, we love Caesar. He's not our king. Okay. So back to Matthew chapter 27. So all that's going on, Matthew didn't have that in there. Matthew 27, verse 24. So when Pilate saw that he could not prevail at all, but rather that a tumult was rising, because now they're getting upset, because he's refusing to I don't want to let him go, I don't want to let him go, I don't want to crucify. Pilate's fighting against him. And Pilate's saying, I believe him. Herod made fun of him. Pilate's like, I believe this guy. Okay. So when Pilate saw that he could not prevail at all, but rather that a tumult was rising, they're about to riot. He took water. He washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. You see to it. This is on you, right? Now, he did this on purpose in front of them. He brought out water. He washes his hand because this is a part of the Jewish law. He had seen them do it. When you needed to prove your innocence, that you were not connected to some crime, you would wash your hands publicly. This started in Deuteronomy chapter 21. It says, if anyone is, Deuteronomy 21, verse 1, if anyone is found slain, lying in the field in the land which your Lord God is giving you to possess. So this is just precursor. Before you even go there, let me give you all the rules. before you even enter the land. Because once you enter the land, you're going to scatter and be crazy. So let's write it all down. So if anyone is found slain, he's dead, he's just lying in the field, and the land which the Lord God has given you to possess, and it is not known who killed him. So if you just happen on a dead body, nobody knows what happens. Here's how you handle that. And the reason why they had to know how to handle it is because God basically had told them every time somebody is killed, murdered, because sometimes God may send them to kill someone, and he's saying, yes, it's okay. You're at war with them, and those people have their wickedness has just been out of control, and so it's okay to go ahead and kill them. But if you just get mad at somebody because you're tired of them burning the toast or snoring too loud or what, I'm gonna kill that person. Then God's like, you have no right to do that. You have no right. So I'm gonna hold you accountable. In Genesis 9:5, after the flood and God's making up these rules, he's writing down these rules. Here's how you need to operate. Because before the flood, people had gotten crazy, right? Cain had killed Abel, you remember? And then there was the line of Seth, that's the third son, and the line of Cain. And by the time they got halfway down the line, there were people in Cain's line who were bragging about killing people. So, oh, I killed three. Cain killed one person. I killed three. So killing, and that was like nothing to the ungodly people. To the godly line, they were good, right? So there were two separate lines until it says that the sons of men, so he's calling the ungodly line men, came down with the sons of God. And if you're in Christ, you're a son of God. So these two lines, and they started to intermarry, and now everybody was crazy and evil. And that's when God says, well, I'm gonna have to blow it up and start all over. So, and again, killing people was like no big, I'm mad at you, you looked funny at me, I don't like the cut of your jib. I am going to kill you. And so people were just killing people, just killing. Well, you know how they are, like today. Like, I'm just driving down the freeway, I'm just gonna shoot you and kill you. Right? So God had to make some rules, and he had said, surely for your lifeblood, I will demand a reckoning. So if somebody kills you, there will be a reckoning. From the hand of every beast, I will require it, from the hand of man. So if some rhinoceros come and gores you, and he's going to have to pay. Not if you've gone up and lived in the lion's house, like you've gone up into the hills where the tigers are and built your house, then that's your fault. But if they just show up in your neighborhood and start killing people, the beast can't, and also men. He says, of every man, from the hand of man, I will require it. From the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. So if you kill somebody, you're going to have to pay. Somebody's going to have to die. And he's establishing a principle. They called it later an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life, right? And he's having to establish these really strong principles because people don't know how to govern themselves. Right. That's why we have to put school zone, big sign, school zone, drive 15 miles an hour, because people will just go through at 80 miles an hour and run over kindergartners, right? Because something's wrong with people. So you have to put laws out. And so God would make really strict laws because they were just kids in their understanding of how the life worked. Later, he eased up. He says, because when they came and they asked Jesus, is this law still in? He says, he did that because of the hardness of your hearts. And here's how God really wants it to go. But because you were crazy, he had to put down really strict laws like this. So if somebody dies, then I'm going to make you have to die. He had to say it like that as a deterrent. Stop killing people. Okay. It says, whoever sheds, so this is Genesis 9:6, whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. You kill somebody, then they get to kill you. For in the image of God, he made man. And he's saying, God made man. God gave life. You didn't give that life, so you don't have the right to take it away. If you can just create life, good for you. But since you can't, you don't get to take it. God made life. So God's saying, I can take it, but you don't get a right to decide that person, they wore blue today and that makes me, so I'm going to kill them. You don't get the right just to do that. So going back to Deuteronomy, he's saying, so if you happen on a dead body, here's what you have to do, because they're thinking, somebody's going to have to die. There's a dead body here, right? So If anyone is found slain lying in the field in the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess, and it is not known who killed him, because you're thinking, oh, somebody's going to have to die. God made this law, right? So here's the remedy. He says, verse 2, then your elders and your judges shall go out and measure the distance from the slain man to the surrounding cities, right? And figure out who lives closest, which city is closest. And it shall be that the elders of the city nearest to the slain man, right? So, turns out Inglewood's the closest city, right? Or whatever. Manhattan Beach, that's the closest. So it's on you. Your elders have to come up. You have to take a heifer, which has not been worked, which is not pulled with a yoke. And he's drilling down. You have to take these innocent animals, and because he's trying to get them to understand Jesus is coming, and the whole point when the Messiah comes, he'll be innocent. So he's just every chance he just keeps drilling in this whole innocent thing, an innocent sacrifice, because Jesus is on trial, right? I'm innocent, but I'm going to be the sacrifice. Okay, so they have to take an heifer which has not been worked and which has not pulled a yoke, and the elders of that city shall bring the heifer down to a valley with flowing water, which is neither plowed nor sown, and they shall break the heifer's neck there in the valley. So there has to be a consequence. There has to be a consequence for sin. Someone killed somebody. He's just lying in the field. There must be a consequence, but it doesn't have to necessarily be man's blood. So here's how you take it. The blood must be shed, because he's still teaching there must be consequence for sin, because people think, I can just do whatever I want and I don't have to pay. There's no consequence, right? And that's why sinners, dedicated, we're all sinners, but people who are like dedicated to sinning, they think they can just get away with and do crazy stuff and there's no consequence. That's why people do the crazy stuff they do. So Jesus is teaching them there are consequences. There are consequences. There are consequences. A price must be paid. So you have to take a heifer. You take a young cow. You're going to break its neck. It says, then the priests, the sons of Levi, shall come near, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister to him and to bless in the name of the Lord. By their word, every controversy and every assault shall be settled. So they're people that God has anointed to solve these problems. Everybody shouldn't be put in that position because God has not anointed everybody to do that. But there's certain people that God gives them the grace to understand and say, okay, here's how we're going to handle the situation. So it says, and the elders of that city that's nearest to the slain man shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley. Then they shall answer and say, our hands have not shed this blood, nor have our eyes seen it. So the whole point is when somebody's been killed and we don't know who did it or how it happened, blood has to be shed, and then you wash your hands and you say, we're not guilty. We did not do it. Our hands have not shed this blood, nor have our eyes seen it. We weren't there. My name is Bennett. I'm not in it. Right? And that's how you're saying we have nothing to do with this. And it says, provide atonement, O Lord. So you provide atonement for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, and do not lay innocent blood to the charge of your people Israel. An atonement shall be provided on their behalf for the blood. Because remember, God said a law. If man's blood has been shed, then a man's blood's going to have to be shed. So in this case, we don't know who did this. So we're washing our hands of it. We're totally in of it. God will provide atonement, but don't bring it on us. We have no idea how this happened. We just showed up. This man's dead. Okay. So you shall put away the guilt of innocent blood from among you when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord. So this became a tradition. When you wanted to say, I'm totally innocent of this, I didn't see it, I wasn't there, the Jews would wash their hands. So Pilate brings out a big bowl of water. He washes his hands. This is innocent, but the judgment's not going to come on me. It's going to come on you, right? My name is Jess. I'm not in this mess. Now, it says, all the people and answered and said, this is Matthew 25, verse 25. So all the people, once he did this and said, this is not on me, they answered and said, his blood be on us and our children. We will take because we don't think he's innocent. This man is guilty. If he's innocent and then he's killed wrongly, which is why the people who are dedicated to find out if there are innocent people who are on death row, like that's their life, God has just given that in their heart. there may be some innocent people who really didn't commit that crime, and they just spend their lives going through the law books and trying to find cases where somebody may not have been tried fairly, because that's a crime. We don't want somebody who's innocent to die unjustly, right? So, but they're saying he's not innocent. His blood be on us and our children. Okay. Then he released Barabbas to them. And when he had scourged Jesus, oh, that's what I was looking for. So he says, and the people answered and said, his blood be on us and our children. Well, in the book of Acts, is it chapter 6? In chapter 6, Peter and Paul are, they're preaching, not Peter and Paul. Peter's preaching. Peter and James are preaching. And they get arrested, and they tell them, we told you not to preach in this name. You're trying to blame us for Jesus' death. You're telling everybody it was our fault. It's like, it was your fault. All through the book of Acts, the chief priests are trying to deny that they had anything. We had nothing. We don't know how Jesus got crucified. You're trying to put that on us. But they said, his blood be on us. And now that he's starting to gain followers, even because they thought we can silence Jesus. We can, we'll just crucify him. But if we just crucify Jesus, then that'll stop everything. Oops. Of course, the opposite happened. And people think that way. They think they're thwarting God, and they're actually furthering God. Right? So, boy, if we just crucify Jesus, that'll put an end to it. Nobody will ever hear his name again. And now there's this huge following in the book of Acts for saying, wasn't on us. Okay. So the people answered and said, his blood be in us and our children. Okay. Then he released Barabbas to them. And when he had scourged Jesus, so let me just talk about the scourging that takes place. It's flagellum is the Latin term for it. And because there were different levels of whipping people, this level, they would take these leather whips, right? And there would be a bone tied to the end of it, or a piece of metal or glass. And there'd be people on both sides, right? And they would whip his back and then drag it across, right? Right. So they're trying to expose skin and muscle and veins and organs if they can, and they glass it and just rip it across. So he's thinking, if I beat him horribly like this and whip Jesus, then they'll go, oh my God, okay, enough. That's what Pilate is thinking. Because they're saying, let him go. And he's still trying, because he had said it earlier in Luke 23, 14 through 16, the second half of verse 14, it says, I have found no fault in this man concerning those things which you accuse him. Neither did Herod, for I sent you back to him, and indeed nothing deserving of death has been done by him. So I will therefore, I'll chastise him, I'll whip him, and then release him, thinking that'll satisfy them. So even at this point, he's thinking, okay, whip him. And if make it really horrible, and they'll just go, okay, enough. No. So he had him scourged, whipped in this horrible way. And this is still fulfilling prophecy. This is not, God's not going, oh man, In Isaiah 50, verse 6 through 7, it says, Isaiah is like channeling Jesus. He's seeing it. And he says, I gave my back to those who struck me, and my cheeks to those who plucked out the beard. I did not hide my face from shame and spitting. Now, none of this happened to Isaiah. This is what the Messiah is doing. I gave my back to them. Go ahead, whip me. And they pulled his beard out. Oh my God. So, before he was ever crucified, they are doing the most cruel things you can imaginable. So he delivers to be crucified, but Pilate washed his hands of it. It's not me. You guys want this? I'm just telling you he's innocent. So he leaves, and in Matthew 27, verse 27 says, then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into their barracks, basically, the praetorium, into their barracks, and they gathered the whole garrison around him. Now, so all the Roman soldiers are around him. Pilate's gone, and they're going to torture Jesus even more so. Now he's already been whipped, right? He's already has the stripes on his back. His skin has been peeled back. You can see bone, blood, right? He hasn't been asleep since the previous night. He's been awake all this time. He's been hanging. Oh, by the way, they would hang you so that when they're whipping, your muscles are already tense so that it tears even more, right? So then they take him. Matthew 27, verse 28 says, and they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. So he had on that gold robe, that fancy robe that Herod had put on him. So they took that off and they're putting a scarlet robe on him. Now, they do the cruelest things. And it's interesting in Psalm 22, where David is also having a vision of this, the 22nd Psalm, David has a vision of the entire crucifixion. We're going to get into that later because I can't talk about the crucifixion tonight. It's too much for me. I have to prepare myself because crucifixion is too much. He says, for dogs have surrounded me. So David is seeing it and narrating what he's seeing. When he says dogs have surrounded me, he doesn't mean literal dogs. He's talking about the sort of vicious people. He says, these dogs have surrounded me. The congregation of the wicked has enclosed me. And this is the time when it's just the Roman soldiers around him being cruel. So they stripped him. They put on a scarlet robe on him. Now, again, that's ironic because the scarlet robe represents the blood of sinners. And they're doing this unwittingly. They're just fulfilling prophecy left and right. In Isaiah chapter 1, verse 18, says, come now and let us reason together. Says the Lord, though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be white as snow. They are red like crimson, but they shall be as wool, like a sheep's wool. This is white wool. So your sins, so they put the scarlet robe on him. So they're putting sin on him. Their sins are like scarlet. I mean, they're evil, but they don't even realize. And again, there's no coincidence in this. God sees the future to our future. He's living there, and he whispers in people's ears, and he simply describes what he's looking at. So there's not a question if what God tells us is going to happen. He has seen it happen. Therefore, when you have the victory, it's because God's already seen you healed of that cancer. He's already there. He's seen you running around shouting and screaming. Or that rent check being paid, or whatever that thing. God, when you feel like, I just feel like it's all going to work out. God doesn't have his finger crossed. Yeah, I hope so. He's already seen it, and he's telling you, I got this. It's going to work out. You can't see it, but I've already seen 20 years down the road, 10 years around. I see your children going off to college. I'm there at the graduation. I'm just telling you what's going to happen because I'm looking at it. So people are fulfilling these prophecies because God had already seen it, even though he says it 700 years. Isaiah prophesied 700 years before Jesus ever showed up. Okay, Matthew 27:29. It says, and then when they had twisted a crown of thorns, they put it on his head. And so this thorn, I understand in Palestine, they have the biggest, hardest, thorniest bushes with thorns that'll just cut you. So they make a crown of this thorn and they smash it onto his head, and a reed in his right hand, and that's supposed to represent a scepter. These are those reeds that sometimes they've used for canes. They were thick, So here's a reed, here's your crown, here's your scepter, here's your crown. And they're making fun of him, and they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they're making fun. Go ahead and present, like it's a beauty pageant. Go ahead, walk around. This guy is bloody. He's bleeding from it, and blood's going in his eyes. He's got this, but they're making fun of him and bowing, and it's a whole pageantry that they're just, mocking him and put on this red robe. Sure, come on, King of the Jews. Then they spat on him, and they took the reed and they struck him on the head. So they're knocking the thorns deeper into his forehead, right? So that more blood's gushing down. Isaiah 53:5-6 says, but he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes. So we are healed. That word wounded means pierced. He was pierced. So this is the thorns. This is all for us. He's bruised, and that word bruised should be translated crushed, right? He's knocked to the ground, and the stripes, because they would like make stripes when they whipped you, they would put the right, boom, the glass, and then they would slide it across your back to make sure to make these red stripes appear. Uh, but this is all for us. So by his stripes, though, our peace, our right place with God is secured. He's paying our debt for our sin, because there is a debt that must be paid for sin. But Jesus paid that price. We could not do it. There's nothing we could do that could save ourselves. So he paid the price for us. And by the stripes on everything that happened to him, our peace with God comes. And because we have peace with God, with it comes all these blessings. Because if God's your friend, it's like going out to dinner with a millionaire or something. It's like, oh, I know he's going to treat, or walking into a club with Beyonce or something, hey, it's like when God's your best friend, when you have peace with God, then you don't have to worry. You know he's going to take care of you, right? So our peace, he won our peace for us. Through all of this, each part of this, not just when he got to the cross, but each step along the way. Okay. And he's our kinsman redeemer. Yes, ma'am. And when they had mocked him, then they took the robe off and they put his own clothes on him and they led him away to be crucified. So listen to Isaiah chapter 50. So once they were done making fun, you think you're the king? Surprise. In Isaiah 52:14, it says, behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He'll be wise, right? He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. And then just as many were astonished at you, and he's saying, just like people were shocked, like, oh my God, those Jews were freed from Egypt and showed up and conquered, just like I can't believe that. Just as many were astonished with you, when they looked and saw, it says, so his visage was marred more than any man. So he's going to be exalted. And when you walked in Jerusalem, they're singing, Hosanna, Hosanna. And then 7 days later, crucify him. And you couldn't even recognize him for the blood dripping down his face, his body is just beaten and scarred and a bloody sack, right? And he says his visage was marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. But so shall he sprinkle many nations. That's as horrible as that is, there's victory in it. It's not some loss. Jesus is not like, oh no, all is lost. His disciples are thinking that. But this blood I'm bleeding, I'm going to sprinkle it on many nations. It says, kings shall shut their mouths at him, like, oh my goodness. For what had not been told them, they shall see. And what they had not heard, they shall consider. So they didn't know there was salvation. They didn't understand they were sinners. But because of this horrible thing happening to him for us, this is all victory. He's going to take his blood and sprinkle it on the mercy seat, and multitudes who are in the valley of decision right now will be flooding into the kingdom of heaven because of all this that's happening. And kings will go, oh, well, I didn't know. And things that they had never thought of, they shall suddenly see. So eyes are going to be open. This is all happening in Jerusalem, but this is going to spread all over the earth. It's an unstoppable force. And the earth will be full of the glory of the Lord. So it's something that just grows and grows and grows and grows. And that's why they would have vision, these prophets of this mountain growing and people coming to this mountain that's just filling the earth. So they think they're doing this horrible thing, this poor man going to the cross, and we've won. And every step is victory for us. Every step he takes. And that's how we have to understand how God works. He's just not, you can't defeat him. The devil thinks he's defeating God, and it's still coming out for victory for us. So that's why we don't worry when it looks dark and it's bad. No, God's like, I'm going to bring victory out of this situation. I'm bringing victory out of the situation. So don't look at it differently. Understand that nothing can separate us from the love of God, that he makes all things work together for our good. And so we are in all these things. It says we are more than conquerors, whether life, nor death, nor the sword, nor famine. In all these things, we are more than conquerors through Christ, because he set that example for us. At the time, everybody thought he was losing. He was winning. His blood will be sprinkled in all the nations. Every stripe that they've marked him with, that's healing for us. That's salvation for us. Every dropping of thought, that is blessing for us because of his blood. And so um, that's why he didn't say anything. In fact, when we get to it next week, he's saying, don't weep for me. Weep for your children, because there's judgment coming on you because you're not seeing what's happening here. So I'm walking into victory, but you're rejecting me, and that's sealing your doom. So, but we'll get to that next week. So thank you. So we're going to walk to the cross. I don't know, and then we're going to get on the cross in the following week, and just break down every single thing that's happening, but especially those 7 last words of Jesus. It's going to be different than you've heard before, because people don't tend to put it all in the context. But that's what we're going to do for you. So thank you again so much for listening in to this evening. And what looks like loss in Christ is victory. And I will see some of you Sunday, and others of you again next Wednesday night. Thank you so much. Good night.